Good morning, my friends and family of YouTube. So, a couple of people in the community reached out and asked me a couple of different questions, and some local kids were asking me. They say, people do how to extract this and do that and modify this, but they don't tell us what certain things are and what they do in a motor. So, I'm going to explain this with a brand new motor. Most people don't know I don't run just Predator motors. I actually have 4 Husqvarna motors. People are going to say, what? Yes. And there's reasons for that, why I have these Husqvarna 6.5, 7 horsepower, 208, 2012, whatever you want to call them, CC motors. They're designated 208 cc. It really, one half dozen another, it really doesn't make a difference. When you're going to modify them, you're going to change compression ratios, valve lashes, all that stuff, right? But I wanted to explain to you some of the different parts of these small engines from a new one. And what's the difference between a Predator 212 or, one of those Chinese knockoff Honda motors? So I'm going to show you something that the reason why I buy the Husqvarna and why this particular casting is really good. Now, anytime you put a hole in something, whether it be a casting or whatever, right? You take from the rigidity of whatever it is, the cast itself. So, what I mean by cast is this lower section here, this is called a head, by the way. Okay? So, this lower section here is made out of a cast. All right? So, in the forgery, they cast this one section. Now, when they cast these sections, they cast them differently. Okay? And for different apertures. Now, Husqvarna, when they casted this for heavy-duty, constant workload, small engine. And you say, well, what's the difference? Well, I'm going to show you a few differences. Now, like every other casting, and the small Honda knockoff motors, when you put your name on something, there's reasons for it, okay? And for whatever particular reason. Now I got a Predator up here, and I'll show you something afterwards. But so sometimes the heads are different. I mean, they could be hemispheric or non-hemispheric heads, which has to do with spring ratios, spring tensions, lashing, lash caps, the whole works. I don't really want to go into all of that, but I want to go over some basic stuff because some people say they've been being ripped off on eBay, and they don't know how to tell the difference between certain things on the motor. I said, okay. So first off, this is a crankshaft. The crankshaft runs all the way through the motor, and on top of the connected to the crankshaft here, all right, if you look in here, I'm going to use a screwdriver. There's a cap right there. If you look, and a rod, and the rod is connected to a piston, which is inside of the cylinder. Now, there's different types of pistons. Some of them are flat, and some of them are concaved. All right, and people say, well, what's the difference? Well, it just has to do with how the people want to run the compression in each one of these chambers. Okay, and the compression changes depending on whether you got a flat top, a domed, or whatever. Okay. I don't really want to go into the specifics of that. It will take me a long time to explain all of that stuff, and I really don't want to get into it. So anyways, this is a crankshaft. This gear right here is for a cam, which is this. This is what's called the 223 cam. This is, most of them run basic 223. Some of them are ground a little bit differently. Okay. And the weight and the lobes are different. Okay. These odd looking things right here are your lobes. And what these lobes do is they hit... Let me show you. They push these rods. Okay. So the lobe will push up on this, which pushes on this rod. I might as well keep this out because I want to show you something. Okay. Push up on this rod. Let me get it on this angle here. They push up on the rod. And then when it pushes up and down, okay? On the top of, some have lashes, lash caps, and some don't. This is called a lash cap. I don't know if I can get it out of there. See this little cap right here? Now, some motors have 2 lash caps. Some of them have 1, like this one, and some of them have none. And some have specialized rocker arms and a rocker setup. Like a hemispheric head is a little bit different. You'll see that. Maybe sometime I'll show you the difference in the hemispheric head. I don't have one out right now. Mine's built and I'm not tearing it apart. Okay, so that's what keeps the timing, okay, on your cam. All right, it's all timed. It's open and closing because you have an intake and you have an exhaust. So how you know the difference is your intake is always by where your carburetor is on this particular engine, not all engines. Okay, so well, actually, if you think about it, it's a fact. So wherever your carburetor is your intake, but intake and exhaust valves are different. Okay, intake valve has to do with the intake of your gas flow into your chamber. Your exhaust opens up and exhausts all of the wasted carbons out and into the air, right? That's how that works. Okay, you can see that. They did a really good job on this motor, and I'm going to show you why. This is really nice. Okay, it's really clean. All of these Husqvarnas, let me zoom in for you a little bit. All of these Husqvarnas that I bought are really nice. They do a really nice job in here. You can reach down in there. It's nice and smooth. It's all pre-ported. They do a really super nice job. And a lot of your Predator motors are not like that, or your knockoff Hondas. This is really nice. I mean, super nice. Super, super nice. Why is that important? Well, restriction. Whenever your intake, which I'll show you on this side, let me move this cam. And if you look at the intake on this too, look at the intake. Look how nice and smooth that is. Huh? They do a really nice job. They really, really do a nice job on these Husqvarnas. Okay? The smoother it is, the less restriction for intake and the less restriction for exhaust. That is very important. Believe it or not, it can change the performance of your motor. So remember, on these motors, your intake is where your carburetor is. Okay? Your intake valve. And your exhaust valve is where your exhaust is. Pretty simple, pretty easy. Okay? This hole in the middle is where your spark plug goes. Okay? Pretty simple. Right? Now, you're saying, well, what's the difference? They're all the same. Well, I'll show you the difference. First off, this model, okay, this is your housing side cover, you know, for the motor. Fits on here like this. I'll show you. Okay. Fits on here like this. Now, not all models have this. And I'm going to tell you what makes this excellent. First off, this long stick up here, right, tells you your level for your oil. You can put it in the front, you can put it in the back, or you can fill it from the top. Gives you 3 different ports. You say, well, what does that really matter? Well, if you need pressure from somewhere, instead of drilling a hole in it to try to get pressure, and what I mean by that is, say you're running oil catch a can system or something like that, right? You can run it off of there and you can loop it around off the top of your valve cover right there. You can loop it right back around, right back into your system. Right back into your system. You can put an input here, and all it's doing is constantly putting your oil back in your motor. And then you don't have to worry about losing a lot of oil. And you say, well, why is that important on this motor? I'm going to show you. On this motor, there is no low oil sensor, okay? So a lot of the Predator motors and these knockoff brands have a low oil sensor, okay? This Husqvarna's, or this model of Husqvarna, does not, okay? I'll show you. I'm going to move it off to the side here, okay? So this model of Husqvarna, which is the real Husqvarna, there's your numbers. Want to look them up, okay? Does not, okay? Look, there was a hole there, or an imprint, but they never drilled it, okay? So what does that mean? Well, if you look back in here where that would have been, look at all that thick metal back there, right? All that thick casting that has not been drilled. What does that do? It adds extra strength. Absolutely. Now you say, oh, well, does that really matter? It absolutely does, especially when it's the back of your casting, okay? I mean, there's lots of different things. Sometimes they don't have fins here, or people cut these fins down. For what reason, I don't have any, no. I don't really understand. So, it does add a little more strength. How much strength? I don't know. I just think that it's great. I think it's great that I don't have to mess with that. I don't have to take it out. I don't have any wires coming out. I don't have to, you know, drill and tap a bolt to go in there. And then, you know, put a bunch of red RTV to seal it up. I don't have that. It's one less headache or problem that I have to deal with, you know, when I'm trying to, you know, put a stage 3 or stage 4 kit on this. You know, I don't have to play around with it. And that's a wonderful thing. And let me tell you, anybody who builds motors will tell you, the less things you got to fart around with, the better off you are. Now, your governor, you know, it still had a governor on it, which I believe the aperture for these were for log splitters. Okay, so they were built for log splitters. Outdoor industrial stuff, you know, built to, you know, last a long time. So, with that in mind, you know, they still had a governor, which is not that hard. All I have to do is tap that, put a bolt in it, and put a little Loctite, red Loctite on it, and voila, it's done, right? I don't have to worry about it, because I don't need a governor in this. Why? Well, because I'm changing the flywheel, and if you notice, this flywheel is a little bit different. This is set up for electric start. So with this motor, you can plug this in, right? You just plug this into a regular 110 outlet, push the button, and it'll start right up for you, no cranking. Which is kind of cool. Now, if you're not going to race these and you just want to run around in the backyard and you want to build something nice for maybe your wife, or Well, maybe your mom or something, and they don't want to crank on it, by hand. Hey, this is a really nice idea. Or maybe you got a handicapped veteran friend or something like that and they want to ride, but they just can't yank the cord. It's a really good model to have, okay? Because it's all set up. You can, all you have to do is plug that in, hit the button, it'll start it right up. It's great. Less stress, right? No brainer. So, anyway, that's another great thing about this. So, there's a couple of good things about this that I like. Now, I can't show you because I can't get down in there. Let me see if I can get the light down in there a little bit. There you go. But I believe these have the flat top pistons too, which the reason for that is they give you more compression, right? And which makes sense. A lot of people, they do change the concave. A lot of the newer motors have the concave pistons. So they got a dip in the top of the piston to the flat top so they can run higher compression. And then what they'll do is they'll take this head off, and a lot of them reduce it to a 10,000ths head gasket, and that gives you even more compression. But when you're running that compression, you want to make sure that, I mean, it's up to you, but I'd run a billet flywheel and a billet rod assembly. And the reason for that is if you're going to run high RPMs, right, and high compression, them parts are constantly moving. And when them parts are constantly moving, there's a lot of pressure that can build up in there. Not just pressure, but, they're getting worked, right? Those parts are actually working. So there's a lot of things that are involved. Tolerances, making sure that you have everything that is proper for whatever you're trying to reach. So when you're building these engines, and you're going maybe up to 6,600 RPMs or so, you got to be careful with these flywheels. Okay? I mean, I wouldn't say I would run my flywheel much past 5,500. And the reason why is they're not really that strong to take that higher RPMs. So when you're running with a high RPM and a high combustion motor, you got to be careful because these things can fly apart. That's why you want to go with a billet flywheel. Sure, you can get them from like $89 to sky's the limit because they think they got the greatest thing since Swiss cheese. But look, if you can pick one up for around $100, that says it's tested for 9,000 RPMs, you're good to go. Unless, I mean, if you're racing, that's what you need. If you're not racing, then, you're just piddling around your backyard. There's no need to take these apart. There's really no need to put a cam in it. There's really no need to do anything like that. But if you want a little bit extra and you're going to put a cam in it, look, if you're going to put a cam in it, put a rod in it, right? You want to get a billet rod for sure because there's a lot of pressure going on that rod. That rod is constantly doing a lot of work. The rod, the rings, the piston, they're constantly doing a lot of work. So you want to be very careful, okay? And don't miss the steps and say, oh, I ain't too worried about that. It's just people trying to get money. Well, if you've ever had one blown, you'll know. So, it's better to spend $100 or $120 to save your neck than it is to blow up your motor and damage all the parts that you put in there. If you want it fast, do it right. That's what I say. So, take your time and see all the procedures. But if you just run in your backyard, there's really no sense in, you know, doing any of that. You can actually just put a Mikuni carburetor on it. You know, you get a little extra fuel. If you want to know what a Makuni Carburetor is, I got one right here. It's brand new. I just finished it. This is another one. I had a couple of them, actually. But this is one of them. I actually have this one, and I got a couple of them hanging around. Brand new ones. All set up, ready to go. So here's a Makuni carburetor. Okay. Now you know that, as you'll see the casting right there. It says Makuni. And it says it on top of that cap. Okay. So if you really just want to get a little more jazz out of it, you can put a nice Makuni carburetor on there. Right? You're going to get more persistent fuel flow. It's going to be quicker. It's going to engage faster. And it'll be just fine. Pick yourself up a nice Makuni. Run you about $65, $70 for the setup, you know. I mean, that's good enough for the backyard. Can you take the governor out? Sure. But, you know, I'm just saying, you know, you take the governor out and, you know, you got to be careful. Got to be careful. Now, I took the governor out of this, but, you know, I'm also putting a different cam in it. I'm going to put a, you know, billet rod in it and a billet flywheel and 10 millimeter gasket. So, I mean, 10 thousandths gasket. So, you know, there's little things that I'm going to do to it. I'm going to hop it up. I'm actually going to shave a little bit here and there, which I don't talk about those things because that's just something that I do. And everybody gives out all their little secrets, right? I don't. I don't do that. I think that some things should be left for the imagination and people to find on their own, right? But because, you know, different people do different things. You know, my uncle's been in business, I don't know, 65 years, I think. Racing NHRA, stock car, strictly stock, modified, SK modified, Super SK modified, late model, NASCAR Truck Series, NASCAR. I mean, he's done it all. He's built some absolutely wonderful, wonderful motors, right? He's got NHRA trophies. I mean, look, the guy knew it. And I spent a lot of my time when I was younger learning little tricks and trades. And one thing is sometimes people don't tell you until you earn the right to know it. And a lot of the stuff I've learned on my own along the way. I still use books. I don't have all the specifications at the top of my head. You know, and if you think that everybody on YouTube has all those specifications at the top of their head for everything, unless they're only building one type of motor every day, and that's all they do, trust me, even they go to the books. And sometimes they go to the books to see if they can, you know, kind of tweak tolerances here and there, you know. Look, it's all about research. No one's perfect. You know, everybody can learn from one another. But there's just certain trade secrets. And if you give those trade secrets, how are you going to have the winning edge? Right? Just like setting up a car for tow and canter on a racetrack. You know, there's certain things that, you know, you got to keep in your back pocket. And that might just help you to win. Why you want to give that to the other guy? So he can win and you can lose? You know. I mean, and then later on in life, when you're no longer doing it, hey, you can tell a little trade secret here and there. There's nothing wrong with that. You know? But it's done every day. That's the way it is. They'll tell you the basic things, but they ain't telling you the little things that they're doing to tweak things. You know? I mean, there's lots of little things that you can do to motors. You know? Lots. But making sure that your tolerances are right are really important. Right? Making sure that you're micing your cam to make sure your cam lobes are right. Making sure that you're checking the journals on your crankshaft. Making sure that you're taking yourself the time to clean everything properly and making sure that nothing is cracked. I mean, you really got to look at this stuff, guys. You really do. I mean, if you're going to race, you know, if you want to just get a motor that's, you know, halfway decent, ready to go, kind of a little bit more performance. Look, Predator got a new motor. It's called the Ghost motor. $300 at, well, at least that's what I seen it as at Harbor Freight. And just slap it on there and go. But if you want to play with these motors, there's lots of little things. Don't think just because it's a little small engine that, oh, there ain't much to it. Well, it can get deeper. And it can get more sophisticated. Little things here and there. You know, weight reduction. Okay, let me tell you something. You see that big old cast right there, that big old flywheel? You put an aluminum flywheel on that, it's much lighter, right? And there's going to be less stress, you know, on this crankshaft. So, you know, it's going to be able to turn a little more horses. You know, weight reduction. You know, me just taking that starter off there is going to help. You know, it's little things like that. Well, anyway, this is getting to be a long video because I'm talking, but I wanted to kind of give you a little insightful stuff. But there was one kid that said that he bought some lifters and some push rods, and he didn't know if they were new or not. Is there a way to test push rods and lifters to know if they're new or not? Well, I'll give you a few little pointers on how I would check. Okay, so if you're buying something off of eBay or someplace like that, and you want to know if they're new or not, unless these guys are really good at buffing them up, this is your lifter. Okay, why do they call it a lifter? Well, because it lifts the push rod, and this is your push rod. Okay, the first thing that you want to do is get yourself a flat surface, right, and roll it. Right, you want to roll it and look to see if there's any wobble in it. Okay, or you can get yourself a straight edge. Straight edge in here? Oh, I do. I'm going to use this for an example. So you can take anything that's a straight edge that you know is a straight edge. I'm using one hand, so bear with me. Right? And then you just put it up against that straight edge and make sure that it's straight. Okay, because, look, you could have a bunch of kids out there selling on eBay, and they got a bent push rod, and you don't know it, and they're telling you it's new, and it's not. So be careful. Some people have no morals. Another thing is, let me show you something. So, this is a little bit of oil right here, right? Let me show you. Take a little bit of oil. And this is how you know when the tolerances are good. You stick it down in here. Right? Now watch. You see how it lifts that? It lifts it because of tolerances. Okay? Because it's not worn out. So you can do that and check it to make sure that it ain't worn out. Every one that I've ever bought, that's what I do. I just check it out. Alright? But always take a straight edge and go along there to make sure that those are straight. It's very important, guys. Bent push rods can cause a lot of problems. So, make sure that I don't have any valves out, or I'd show you about, you know, valve seats and how valves are cut and how to lap them. Maybe I'll do a video sometime, I don't know. I just do this as informational stuff because, look, I like to do it. But so, anyways, I hope this little video helped you guys out. Like, share, subscribe. Leave a comment down in the comment section. And I'll do more videos in the future. I hope the information was helpful to you guys, and I hope you have a wonderful day. God bless. Take care. This is Pastor Bob, and I'm out of here. See ya.